When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. I do not know why that smile came. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was shame. Or maybe it was the kind of smile a mother gives when her heart is breaking, but she does not want anyone to see the pieces falling. I remember standing in the hallway of my son's home. My hands were shaking. The smell of fresh coffee was still in the air. The morning light came through the window, soft and gentle, as if nothing wrong was happening. But something was wrong. Very wrong. My daughter-in-law, Emily, stood in front of me. Her eyes were tired. Her voice was flat. And she said the words that still echo inside me. Linda, I think it's time for you to go back to your own place. This house is getting too crowded. I felt the breath leave my chest. Not fast. Not sudden. But slow, like a balloon losing air. I wanted to ask her why. I wanted to ask her what I had done wrong. I wanted to look toward my son Michael and see him defend me. But he didn't say anything. He stood behind her near the kitchen counter, holding his coffee mug with both hands. His eyes were fixed on the floor. He did not look at me. At first I thought he was just confused. Maybe he didn't hear her correctly. Maybe he was waiting for the right moment to speak. But he didn't. Not then. Not even later. I could hear the ticking of the small wall clock. I could hear the sound of the refrigerator humming. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. And yet, the house felt silent. Too silent. Emily crossed her arms. Michael swallowed hard. And I stood there holding my small purse like it was the only thing keeping me steady. I can pack my things, I whispered. Emily nodded, relieved. Michael still didn't speak. I should have cried. I should have broken down. But I didn't. I just kept smiling, that strange, painful smile. Because deep down I wondered if this moment had been coming for a long time, and I was simply refusing to see it. As I turned away, I felt my heart growing heavier with each step. Heavier, and heavier, until it felt like I was carrying years of mistakes on my back. But at that time I did not know something far worse was coming. A day would arrive, only a few weeks later, when my husband and I would find ourselves trapped in our own basement. Trapped by the same son we had raised with so much love. And before the sun went down on that day, my husband would reveal a secret that broke me in ways I still cannot explain. But that part of the story comes later. For now, let me take you back to the beginning. To the quiet moments. To the tiny cracks in our family that I ignored. Cracks that would eventually become deep wounds. This is my story. Told softly. Told honestly. And told with the hope that somewhere, someone listening will understand that even the strongest families can fall apart in silence. My name is Linda Carter. I am 59 years old. I have been married to my husband Henry for almost 38 years. Henry is a gentleman. Not perfect, no one is, but gentle in a way that made life easier. He worked at a small hardware store for most of his life. He was never rich, never loud, never the center of attention. But he was steady. He was dependable. And I trusted him with every part of my life. We raised one son, Michael Carter. He was our pride, our joy, our miracle, because for many years doctors told me I couldn't have children. Michael was a quiet boy, but he was always observant. When he was little, he followed Henry everywhere. To the garage, to the backyard, to the hardware store on weekends. And when he wasn't with Henry, he was with me. In the kitchen. In the garden. Sitting next to me while I sewed. He was my shadow. My little companion. There are memories of him that still feel warm. Like the way he used to hold my hand while crossing the street. Or how he would run to the door when Henry came home shouting, "Daddy's back." Or how he used to bring me small, crookedly wrapped gifts made from paper and string. I thought, truly believed, that our bond was unbreakable. But life has a strange way of testing the things we think are strongest. Michael grew up like all children do. He went to college. He met a young woman named Emily during his senior year. She was smart, ambitious, very well put together. Maybe a little too sharp for Michael's gentle nature, but I didn't mind at first. When they got married, I felt proud. Michael looked handsome in his suit. Emily looked beautiful in her white gown. I remember watching them dance their first dance as husband and wife. Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. Michael closed his eyes, smiling softly. I remember thinking, they look happy. They look safe. They look ready for a good life. And for a while everything seemed fine. They moved into a 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood. Michael started working as an accountant. Emily worked in a marketing firm. Their life seemed perfect from the outside. But sometimes, perfection hides small cracks. Cracks no one sees. Cracks I didn't want to see. Even after they were married for 3 years, Michael and Emily didn't have children. And that was fine, not everyone wants kids. But Emily's tone changed whenever the subject came up. Not now, she would say sharply. We need to focus on our careers. Michael would nod quietly. My heart would ache a little, but I stayed silent. It wasn't my place to interfere. So I noticed subtle shifts. Emily grew more distant. Michael grew more nervous, more careful with his words. And sometimes when Henry and I visited, I felt something cold in the air. But I ignored it. Because that's what mothers do sometimes. We ignore the small signs in the hope that things will get better. And then one day everything changed. Started with a call. A simple call. But it set off a chain of events I could never have imagined. Oh. It was a rainy afternoon. Soft rain, the kind that taps gently on the window. Henry was napping on the couch. I was folding laundry slowly, thinking about what to cook for dinner. The phone rang. I picked it up, expecting a telemarketer or a wrong number. But it was Michael. His voice was shaky. Mom, can you and Dad come stay with us for a while? He asked. I froze. Stay with them? For a while? What happened? Before I could ask, he added quickly. Emily wants it too. That surprised me even more. Emily rarely asked for anything from us. She kept her distance, always polite but never warm. Is everything okay? I asked gently. Yes, he said, but his voice told me no. We need some support. Can you come? I looked at the rain outside. I looked at Henry sleeping with a soft snore. I looked at the simple home we had built for decades. And still, without a second thought, I said, Of course, Michael. We'll come tomorrow. He sighed in relief. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. After he hung up, I woke Henry and told him what happened. He rubbed his eyes, confused. They need support? What does that mean? He asked. I don't know, I said honestly. But I could feel something in my chest. A quiet worry. A quiet fear. A quiet truth I didn't want to face. Something was wrong. And whatever it was, we were about to step right into the middle of it. Arriving at their home. The next morning we packed a small suitcase. Nothing fancy. Just clothes, toiletries, and a few things we thought we might need. The drive to Michael's house was quiet. Henry kept his eyes on the road, his fingers tapping the steering wheel. The sky was gray, heavy with leftover rain. When we reached the house, Emily opened the door. She looked tired. Her hair was tied in a messy bun. She wasn't wearing makeup, which was unusual for her. Hi, she said softly. She hugged Henry. Then she hugged me. The hug felt stiff. Michael came down the stairs, smiling, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Mom, Dad, thanks for coming. What's going on? Henry asked gently. Michael avoided his eyes. We'll explain later, he said. Emily stepped aside, letting us in. And that's when I noticed something strange. Boxes. So many boxes. Stacked against the walls. Some open. Some taped shut. Some half-packed with clothes and paper sticking out. Are you moving? I asked quietly. Emily glanced at Michael. Michael swallowed. We're reorganizing, he said slowly. Reorganizing what? Their entire lives? But I didn't press. I wanted to give them space. We settled into the guest room. It smelled like lavender, but underneath the lavender there was something else. The smell of tension. Thick, heavy tension. That night after dinner, Emily stood up and said, By the way, Linda, Michael and I need the study room for work. So please try not to go in there. We keep important things inside. I didn't think much of it at the time. But those boxes in the study, the locked drawers, the way Michael looked away when Emily mentioned it. Later I would realize everything was connected. Everything. The boxes. The tension. The locked room. Emily's coldness. Michael's nervousness. All of it was part of a truth I had never imagined. But the worst part, the day that would break my heart, still hadn't come. It was waiting for us in the basement. And the person who would put us there was the same son I had once held in my arms. The first few days in Michael and Emily's house were quiet. Too quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful. Henry tried to make conversation during breakfast, but the words floated in the air and disappeared before anyone picked them up. Emily woke up early every morning. She moved around the kitchen quickly, always on her phone, always checking something. Michael stayed in the study for hours, the door closed, A soft clicking sound coming from inside, like papers or drawers or maybe a safe. It was hard not to feel like guests in our own son's home. On the third morning I walked downstairs and found Emily standing by the window. Her arms were wrapped around herself. She looked out into the yard, her eyes unfocused. "Are you okay, dear?" I asked gently. She blinked and forced a smile. "Yes. Just tired." But her voice cracked on the last word. Michael came out of the study at that exact moment, closing the door quickly behind him. He looked surprised to see us both awake. "Oh, good morning," he said. Emily didn't turn around. She kept staring at the yard. "Michael," I said softly, "is something going on? You can tell us." He scratched his head then shook it. "Just work stress," he whispered. But the tremble in his voice told another story. Later that afternoon Henry found me folding laundry in the guest room. "You feel it too, don't you?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "There's something they're not telling us," I said. "It's like they're hiding from their own shadows." Henry sighed. "I wish he'd talk to us. He used to tell us everything." I looked at the closed study door down the hall. "He still can," I said. "I'm his mother." But even as I said the words, I felt a cold truth in my chest. Maybe he didn't want to talk. Maybe he couldn't. And I did not know which of those hurt more. Things became stranger on the fourth night. Michael came home late, much later than usual. Emily was pacing the kitchen, her hands shaking as she held her phone. When he finally walked in, she rushed toward him. "Where were you?" she whispered harshly. Michael looked at me and Henry, then back at her. "I told you," he said quietly, "I had to meet someone." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Someone? Who, Michael? Who?" He didn't answer. He just held her arms gently and said, "Please. Not now." Emily pulled away and covered her face. Henry and I stood frozen. We didn't know what to do or whether we were meant to see any of this. Michael walked past us without a word and went straight to the study. The door clicked shut. Emily sank into a chair. For the first time since we arrived, she looked afraid. And that fear spread through the house like a slow-moving storm. Something was breaking. Not loudly. Not suddenly. But quietly from the inside out. The next morning house tension grew thicker. Almost visible like fog. Small things began to pile up. Sharp glances. Half-spoken sentences. Doors closing softly but meaningfully. Michael's sleepless eyes. Emily's trembling hands. And the conflict truly began. The morning after Michael came home late, I woke earlier than usual. The house was still, almost heavy with silence. Henry was still asleep beside me, breathing softly. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and walked down the hallway. As I passed the study door, I paused. It was closed as always. But this time I heard something behind it. Soft footsteps. A drawer sliding. A sound like paper being shuffled in a hurry. For a moment I thought about knocking. I even lifted my hand. But something stopped me. A feeling, like I wasn't supposed to hear any of this. Like I was standing too close to something hidden. So I took a step back. Then another. And I went downstairs slowly, trying not to think. The kitchen lights were on. Emily sat at the table holding a cold cup of tea. Her eyes were red as if she hadn't slept. "Morning," I whispered. She looked up startled. "Oh, Linda. I didn't hear you come down." I poured myself a cup of coffee. The warm smell filled the room, but it didn't soften anything. "Rough night?" I asked gently. Emily looked toward the ceiling, toward the study above us, and nodded. "A little," she whispered. I sat across from her. The early morning light came through the windows, soft and gray, like washed-out watercolor. "You can talk to me," I told her softly. "I'm not here to judge." She stared at her cup for a long time. "I wish I knew what was happening," she finally said. Her voice trembled. "Michael used to tell me everything. But lately, it's like he's living in a world I can't enter. He keeps secrets. He hides his stress. He flinches when his phone rings. And when I ask him, he just says it's work." She wiped a small tear with the back of her hand. "But I know him. And this isn't work." I reached across the table and touched her hand gently. "Marriage is hard sometimes," I said quietly. "People get lost in their worries. But they come back." Emily swallowed. "I hope so," she whispered. A moment later we heard the creak of the floor upstairs. Footsteps. Then silence. Emily sat up straighter. Michael, she called. No answer. I wanted to say something comforting, something that would make her believe everything would be okay. Something to push away the cold feeling in the room. But before I could speak, Michael appeared in the doorway. He looked pale. Tired. His shirt wasn't buttoned right, as if he had put it on in a hurry. Oh, he said softly. You're both awake. He stepped inside the kitchen, kissed Emily's forehead gently, and forced a small smile. Let's have breakfast, he said. But even his smile felt like it was holding something together with weak glue. Small cracks become big ones. Over the next week, little moments started to add up. Moments that felt strange. Moments that didn't make sense. One afternoon, Michael left the house quickly, saying he had an urgent meeting. Emily watched him through the window, her arms wrapped around her body. He never used to leave like this, she whispered to herself. Later that evening, Henry found a piece of paper on the hallway table. It was folded, but the corner stuck out. He handed it to me quietly. Maybe it's important, he said. I opened it. My heart tightened. It looked like a bank document. Michael's name was at the top. And there was a number on it. A large number. Money withdrawn over time. A lot of money. Linda, Henry whispered. Why is he taking out this much? I shook my head. I don't know. We put the paper back exactly where we found it. We didn't want to cross any boundaries. We didn't want to be the kind of parents who meddled. But worry grew inside me like a slow-growing vine. The argument. One night around midnight I woke to the sound of voices. Not yelling. Not screaming. Just harsh whispers. Urgent whispers. I nudged Henry awake. Do you hear that? I asked. He nodded. We stepped out of the guest room and walked quietly down the hall. The voices were coming from the living room. Michael and Emily. Their silhouettes moved in the dim light. Just tell me the truth, Emily said, her voice cracked with emotion. There's nothing to tell, Michael whispered back. You're hiding something. I'm not. You're lying. I'm not lying. Then why did you take the money, Michael? Why? Silence. Cold, chilling silence. Henry and I froze. Money. Was that what the bank document was about? Emily stepped closer to him. Are you in trouble? She whispered. Are you involved with someone? Is someone threatening you? Michael stepped back. Don't say that, he said sharply, but not loudly. He sounded afraid. Desperate. Then tell me, she said again. I can't. Emily covered her mouth. You promised you'd never keep secrets from me. Michael shook his head, his eyes shining with unshed tears. I'm trying to protect you, Emily. Please, just trust me. Emily turned away from him, hugging herself tightly, her shoulders shaking. Michael tried to touch her, but she pulled back. Don't, she whispered. Not until you tell me the truth. Then she walked past us, not even noticing we were standing in the hallway watching everything. Michael stayed in the living room staring at the floor. Henry took a small breath. We need to talk to him tomorrow, he whispered. I nodded. But tomorrow never came the way we expected. The unexpected event. The next day everything changed again. Emily left early for work, earlier than usual. Michael looked anxious, pacing from one room to another. Around noon, when Henry and I were sitting in the living room, Michael came down the stairs hurriedly. I have to go out for a couple of hours, he said, grabbing his jacket. Don't wait for me. Michael, Henry said gently, can we talk for a moment? Michael froze at the door. He didn't turn around. His shoulders tensed. Not now, Dad, he said. Son, we're worried, Henry continued. Just tell us. Michael turned abruptly. I said not now. The tone wasn't loud. But it was sharp. Pained. Almost panicked. Henry stepped back slightly. I stood up. Michael, I said softly, we love you. We just want to help. Something in Michael's face softened. But only for a moment. Then fear replaced it again. I have to go, he whispered. Please, just stay home today. Don't go anywhere. And then he left. The front door closed gently. But it felt like a door shutting on our peace. The mysterious box. An hour later there was a knock at the door. Henry and I looked at each other. We weren't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, a delivery man stood there with a medium-sized box. Delivery for Michael Carter, he said. I signed for it and brought it inside. The box wasn't heavy. But something inside shifted when I placed it on the table. Henry looked at it. "You think we should open it?" he asked softly. I shook my head immediately. "No. It's not ours." But the box felt dangerous. Felt like it carried something important. Something connected to all the tension in the house. We placed it on the side table untouched. Hours passed. Emily came home from work. She looked exhausted. "What's that?" she asked, seeing the box. "A package for Michael," I said. "He hasn't returned yet." Emily walked to the box slowly. She touched one corner, then pulled her hand back. "He didn't mention expecting anything." Henry stepped closer. "He said he'd be out for a few hours," he explained. "We don't know when he'll be back." Emily sat down, her head in her hands. "I don't like this," she whispered. "None of it." I sat beside her. "Emily," I whispered gently, "you're shaking." She nodded. "I'm scared, Linda," she said. "I'm scared of what he's hiding." Her voice broke. "I'm scared that whatever it is, it's getting worse." A shadow in the driveway. Evening came. Still no sign of Michael. Emily tried calling him. No answer. And again. Henry stood by the living room window. "He's been gone too long," he whispered. Then suddenly Henry stiffened. "Linda, look." I walked to the window. A car had pulled into the driveway. Not Michael's car. A dark sedan. The engine didn't turn off. The windows were tinted. No one stepped out. Emily rushed over. "That's not Michael," she said. Henry's jaw tightened. "No," he whispered. "It's not." For a while the car just sat there. Quiet. So, watching us. A cold chill ran down my spine. And then, without warning, the car backed up slowly and drove away. Emily covered her mouth. "Oh my God." Henry turned to me. "Something is wrong," he said. "We need to talk to Michael as soon as he comes home." But deep down, I feared the truth. Michael was involved in something dark. Something dangerous. Something he couldn't tell any of us. Michael returns. It was almost midnight when we finally heard the front door open. Michael stepped inside slowly. He looked pale, almost sick. His hands trembled slightly. His eyes were red, as if he had been crying or rubbing them too hard. Emily ran to him. "Where were you?" "I've been calling all day." Michael avoided her gaze. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I had to handle something." "What something?" she asked. "What is happening to you?" Michael glanced at Henry and me, then at the mysterious box on the table. He froze. His chest rose and fell sharply. "Did you open that?" he asked. "No," Henry said. "We didn't touch it." Michael rushed to the box and held it tightly in his arms. Emily stared at him. "Michael, what's in there?" He swallowed. "Nothing you need to worry about." Emily shook her head. "You said that yesterday. And the day before. And last week. I can't keep pretending everything is normal." Michael closed his eyes. "I'm trying to protect you," he whispered again. Emily stepped back. "From what, Michael?" "From who?" Michael didn't answer. Instead, he looked at us, at his parents, with deep sadness. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "For everything." Then he carried the box upstairs. We didn't follow him. We didn't sleep that night. None of us did. Because whatever he was involved in, it was dragging all of us deeper into something unknown. A storm had entered our family. Quietly. Fully. And this was only the beginning. Michael didn't come down the next morning. Emily knocked on the study door twice. No answer. She pushed gently, but it was locked. "Michael," she said softly, "please open the door." Silence. Henry appeared behind us. "Let him be," he whispered. "He's overwhelmed." But even Henry didn't believe his own words. Emily leaned against the wall, wiping her eyes. "This is not him," she whispered. "He's never locked himself in a room like this." I put a hand on her shoulder. "He will come out," I said quietly. "When he's ready." An hour later, the door opened. Michael stepped out holding the mysterious box tucked under his arm. He looked exhausted, as if he hadn't slept. He passed all three of us without meeting our eyes and went straight outside. "Michael, where are you going?" Emily called. "I have to take care of something," he said. "When will you be back?" "I don't know." He closed the door gently and drove away. The phone call. Emily sat on the couch, staring at her hands. Henry paced the living room in slow, steady steps. I stood near the kitchen counter, unable to stay still. Then my phone rang. It was Michael. I answered quickly. Michael? Are you okay? His voice was barely above a whisper. Mom, I need you and Dad to stay home today. Please. Why? He didn't answer the question. Just stay inside. Do not open the door for anyone. Promise me. Michael, what's happening? You're scaring me. He took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. I didn't want this to happen. Son. I'll come home tonight, he whispered. And when I do, I'll explain everything. Before I could say anything else, the call ended. I looked at Henry. My hands were trembling. He told us to stay inside, I whispered. Henry's eyebrows pulled together. Why? I don't know, but I think he's afraid for us. Emily's face turned pale. Linda, what if he's into something dangerous? Henry didn't respond. He walked to the window and looked outside. For the next few hours, all three of us stayed close. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Emily tried calling Michael again, but every call went straight to voicemail. The second car. Around 3 p.m. I walked into the living room and saw Henry standing by the window again. His face was tight with worry. What is it? I asked. He pointed outside. A car, a different one from yesterday, was parked across the street. Not moving. Not leaving. Just sitting there. Emily came beside us. That car was not there this morning, she whispered. The car stayed for half an hour. Then 40 minutes. Then almost an hour. Henry tightened his jaw. I don't like this, he said softly. Emily covered her mouth. Linda, do you think Michael owes someone money? The question hit me hard. The bank paper. The late nights. The fear in his eyes. The box. It all started to form a shape. Not a clear shape, but enough to scare me. I don't know, I said quietly. But something is very wrong. Another knock came at the door. We froze. 3 slow knocks. Henry whispered. Don't open it. Emily's hands trembled. 3 knocks. No one answered. The house felt like a cage. Michael returns again. Michael didn't return until after sunset. When we heard the front door open, Emily rushed toward him. Michael stood just inside the doorway, his clothes damp with sweat, his breathing fast. Where were you? Emily whispered. He didn't answer. He walked to the living room and sat on the couch, his face in his hands. Henry stood across from him, arms crossed but in a calm way, not angry. Son, Henry said gently, talk to us. Michael looked up slowly. There was something broken in his eyes. I think I made everything worse. Emily knelt beside him. What do you mean? Michael swallowed hard. I tried to fix it today. Thought I could. But I couldn't. And now. He covered his face again. Now they're following me. Emily froze. Henry stepped closer. Who? He asked. Michael didn't answer. Michael, I said softly, you need to tell us. Whatever it is, we can help you. He took a deep, shaking breath. I took money, he whispered. Emily closed her eyes. How much? She asked. A lot, he said. Too much. Why? Henry asked quietly. Michael wiped his eyes. Because I thought I could double it. Emily gasped. No. He nodded. I invested it with people I shouldn't have trusted. And now they want it back. Henry sat down slowly. Son, how much did you lose? Michael's lips trembled. Almost everything. Emily leaned back, shocked. Michael, that was our savings. His voice cracked. I know. She covered her mouth. And my account too? He nodded again, sobbing. Emily collapsed onto the floor. Her fingers dug into her hair. Michael, how could you? I needed a way out. I thought I could fix our life. I thought I could give us more. And when it started going bad, I panicked. Henry closed his eyes. What about the people? He asked quietly. The ones following you? Michael looked down. They're dangerous. Emily choked on a breath. What do they want? Just the money. Michael hesitated. No, he whispered. They want something else too. Emily wiped her tears. What? Michael glanced toward the study, the place he kept the box. They want what's in that box, he said softly. My stomach dropped. What's inside? I asked. Michael shook his head. I can't say. But if I give it to them, things might get worse. Henry leaned forward. Worse than this? Michael nodded slowly. And for the first time I saw true fear in my son's eyes. Not stress. Not guilt. Fear. Real fear. The night of the break-in. That night no one slept. We stayed in the living room quiet waiting for Michael to explain more. But he didn't. Every small sound made Emily flinch. Every passing car made Henry check the window. And every minute of silence pressed on my chest like a heavy weight. Around 2 a.m. the power flickered. Emily looked up. What was that? Henry stood up slowly. The power flickered again. Then went out. Darkness filled the house. Stay together, Henry whispered. I grabbed Emily's hand. Her fingers were ice cold. Michael stood very still. A moment later, a soft metallic click came from the back door. Not loud. Not rushed. Careful. Deliberate. Someone was trying to enter. Emily froze. Henry whispered. Into the basement. Now. Michael grabbed the box from the study. The same box he had been protecting. And rushed toward the basement door. We followed him. Emily whispered. Michael, what's happening? He didn't answer. Footsteps sounded in the house. Slow. Heavy. Michael pushed us into the basement and closed the door gently. Stay here, he whispered. No. I grabbed his arm. Michael, stay with us. But he shook his head. I'm the one they want. And before I could stop him, he locked the basement door from the outside. Michael, I called. Silence. Then footsteps moved away. I pressed my ear to the door. Voices. Men's voices. Emily began to cry softly. Henry put a comforting hand on her back, but even his hand shook. And down there in that cold basement, I realized something. Whatever Michael had done, whatever he was trying to fix, whatever the box contained, it was only the beginning of a deeper, darker truth. And within the next hour, my husband would reveal a secret of his own. A secret I never expected. A secret that broke me in ways Michael's mistakes never could. Because Michael wasn't the only one hiding things. My husband was too. For the first few seconds after the basement door locked, none of us moved. The silence felt thick, almost like it had weight. My breath was shallow and I could hear Emily quietly crying behind me. Henry stood near the steps, one hand on the railing, listening intently. Upstairs, footsteps moved across the floorboards. Slow. Heavy. Purposeful. Michael's voice wasn't among them. I felt something cold spread through my chest. Henry, I whispered, they're inside. He nodded slowly. I know. Emily covered her face. What if they hurt him? She whispered between shaky breaths. I put my arm around her shoulders. He's trying to protect us, I said softly. But he shouldn't be alone. Henry turned to me. Linda, we have to stay quiet. His voice was steady, but I could see fear in his eyes. It wasn't fear of the men upstairs. No, it was something deeper. Something I didn't understand yet. I stepped closer to him. Henry, talk to me, I said under my breath. You're shaking. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For a moment his eyes looked far away, like he was standing in two different years at the same time. The footsteps upstairs grew louder. A drawer slammed open. Something crashed on the floor. Emily jumped. Henry exhaled slowly. We need to sit, he said. Just sit. Stay close. He guided us toward the corner of the basement, near the old washer and dryer. It was cold there, cold enough to make my fingers numb. We huddled together, listening to the chaos above. I don't know how long the searching lasted. 5 minutes? 10? 20? Every minute felt like it stretched into hours. At some point, Emily whispered, "Why did he lock us down here?" "Because he thought they wouldn't hurt us," Henry said softly. "But what about him?" Henry looked at the floor. "He's been dealing with them longer than we thought." That sentence hit me like a stone. "How long?" I asked quietly. Henry was silent. "Henry." I touched his arm gently. "Tell me." Before he could answer, something upstairs shattered. A vase. A lamp. Glass exploded across the floor. Emily sobbed again. Henry grabbed her hand. "Emily, Listen to me. You're safe down here. His voice was different now, firmer, more urgent. And I recognized that tone. It was the tone he used when he was trying to control a truth that was slipping through his fingers. Footsteps moved toward the basement door. We froze. A hand rattled the doorknob. Emily gasped, muffling her mouth with both hands. The men tested the lock again. For one terrifying moment I thought the lock might break. I imagined the door creaking open, shadows descending the stairs, eyes searching for us. But then, the footsteps retreated. More voices. Muffled curses. The sound of something else being overturned. And then, silence. A long, heavy silence. Henry slowly let go of a breath he'd been holding. They're gone, he whispered. But I couldn't relax. Because even with the danger upstairs, something else was happening. Henry's body was stiff. His eyes avoided mine. And his breathing was uneven. I crawled closer to him. Henry, I said softly, what's going on? What are you not telling me? He closed his eyes. His hand trembled once. Linda, please. That one word, please, was the calm before a storm I didn't see coming. Emily wiped her eyes. Henry, do you know something? She whispered. About Michael? About these men? Henry rubbed his forehead, his fingers shaking. I didn't want this to happen, he whispered. I didn't want any of this. I felt my stomach tighten. Tell us, I said gently, before something worse happens. He lifted his head slowly. His eyes glistened, not with tears but with guilt. Deep, heavy guilt. Linda, he said, his voice breaking. This isn't only about Michael. The room seemed to tilt for a moment. What do you mean? I whispered. Henry swallowed hard. I should have told you. Years ago. My breath caught. What should you have told me? My voice was barely a whisper. He looked down at his hands. Hands that had held mine for decades. Hands that raised our son. Hands that I thought I knew. But now, those same hands trembled like they were holding a burden too heavy to carry. Emily leaned forward. Henry, please. He finally looked at us. And when he spoke, my heart cracked open. I think I'm the reason those men found Michael. The basement felt colder. My fingers went numb. What? I whispered. What did you do? Henry looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Years ago, he said slowly, I borrowed money from people I shouldn't have. Emily covered her mouth. But why? I whispered. He exhaled a long, trembling breath. To save the house. The words hit me like a blow. He continued, voice soft, breaking. You remember when I lost my job? When we were behind on the mortgage? I was too ashamed to tell you how bad things were. I thought I could fix it without worrying you. He closed his eyes. So I borrowed money. Just until we could get back on our feet. But the interest, the pressure, it grew faster than we could pay. My heart squeezed painfully. Henry, why didn't you tell me? My voice cracked. I didn't want you to think I had failed you, he whispered. I didn't want you to feel unsafe. Emily whispered. But how does that involve Michael? Henry took a deep, slow breath. When I couldn't pay any more, they found Michael. My breath stopped. They threatened him? Emily asked, horrified. Henry nodded. Yes. They told him, if he didn't pay off the debt they would take everything from him. His job. His safety. His wife. His parents. Emily cried harder. I felt a sharp, piercing pain in my chest. And instead of telling you, Henry continued, Michael tried to fix it on his own. He thought if he paid back my debt he could protect us. My voice trembled. So he started withdrawing money. Yes. And the box. Emily whispered. Henry's eyes filled with guilt. That box is the last piece of leverage those men want. Something they gave Michael to hold. Something he was supposed to return when he finished the payments. I don't know what's inside, but I know they'll do anything to get it. Emily wiped her tears angrily. Why didn't either of you tell me? Henry whispered. Because we were ashamed. I felt my heart ache, not with anger but with heartbreak. For Michael. For Henry. For all of us. For the years they carried burdens alone because they thought silence was safer. I reached for Henry's hand. Why now? I whispered. Why are you telling me this now? He looked at me, his face full of regret. Because if something happens tonight, I don't want you to hear the truth from someone else. Tears filled my eyes. Not loud tears. Not angry tears. Quiet tears. The kind that fall when a truth is too heavy to hold. Emily cried softly beside us. I squeezed Henry's hand tighter. I wish you had told me, I whispered. We could have carried this together. He lowered his head. I didn't want you to see me as weak. My heart broke again. Oh, Henry, I said softly. I married you for your heart, not your strength. Upstairs, the house grew quiet again. No footsteps. No voices. Nothing. But inside that basement, our lives had changed forever. Michael was fighting alone upstairs. Henry's truth hung heavy in the air. Emily's world was collapsing around her. And I felt a different kind of fear. Not fear of the men above us, but fear of how deeply silence had wounded our family. For the first time since the door locked, I wasn't afraid of danger. I was afraid of losing the people I loved. For a long time after Henry finished speaking, none of us said a word. The basement felt heavier, like the air itself was thinking, absorbing every truth that had finally come out. Emily leaned against the cold concrete wall, her hands covering her face. I sat beside Henry, still holding his hand, but my thoughts were spinning. How long had he carried this alone? How long had Michael protected us without saying a word? How much fear, how much shame had been passed silently from father to son? I realized something painful then. Silence can break a family just as easily as violence can. Above us, the house made small settling sounds, wood creaking, wind brushing against the windows. But it was quiet now. Too quiet. Emily lifted her head slowly. So, Michael's been in danger all this time because he was trying to fix your mistake, she whispered to Henry. The words weren't cruel. They were tired. Heartbroken. Henry nodded once, slowly. Yes, he said softly. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Emily wiped her eyes. And the money he took, all those withdrawals. He thought he could pay them off, Henry whispered. He was protecting you too. Emily covered her mouth, choking on tears. He should have told me, she whispered. He should have trusted me. Henry shook his head. Emily, he didn't even trust himself. Those words sank deep. I looked at Henry. Why didn't you come to me? I asked quietly. My voice wasn't angry, only full of aching sadness. Henry's eyes softened. I wanted to, every day. I almost did so many times. But every time I saw you working in the kitchen or humming while you folded laundry, I told myself I couldn't ruin that peace. I couldn't put this burden on you. I touched his cheek gently. You were supposed to share everything with me, I whispered. That's what marriage is. He lowered his head, tears welling in his eyes. I failed you, he said softly. And I failed our son. No, I said, squeezing his hand. You made a mistake. A terrible one. But failing us would have meant walking away. You stayed, even under the weight of all this. Henry's shoulders shook once. I didn't want you to look at me differently. I took a deep breath. Henry, I look at you now knowing everything, and I still see the man I married. A man who tried to protect his family, even if he did it the wrong way. He swallowed hard. Thank you, he whispered. Emily watched us, tears streaming down her face. I wish he had trusted me too, she whispered. I would have stood by him. I would have helped. We all would have, I said softly. Emily pressed her forehead against her knees. Why does love make people hide so much? She whispered. Because love creates fear. Fear of disappointing, fear of failing, fear of breaking what's precious. But I didn't say that out loud. A sound from above. Suddenly, a noise from upstairs broke the moment. A door shutting. Hard. We all stiffened. Emily grabbed my arm. Henry stood up slowly and walked to the foot of the basement stairs, listening. Another sound. Footsteps. Slow. Dragging. Is it them? Emily whispered. Henry put a finger to his lips. We listened. One step. Another. Then silence. I think it's just one person, Henry whispered. Michael? Emily asked hopefully. We waited. The basement doorknob rattled. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The lock clicked softly. Not breaking, not forced. Tested. Then another click. Henry took a step back, bracing himself. I whispered, Henry, what if? The door opened. A figure stepped inside. And for one terrifying second, none of us moved. Then Emily gasped. Michael. He stood at the top of the stairs, shoulders hunched, hair messy, his shirt torn at the sleeve. But he was alive. When he saw us huddled together on the floor, he looked relieved. And then exhausted. Thank God, he whispered. We rushed to him. Emily reached him first, wrapping her arms around him tightly. Where were you? She cried. We heard them. We thought. I hid, he said quietly. Until they left. Henry stepped closer. Did they take anything? Michael shook his head. No. They were looking for the box. Nothing else. Emily looked at the box in his hand. Michael, what's inside? He looked down at it. I'll tell you, he whispered. But you have to sit. All of you. We slowly gathered around him on the cold basement floor. The single bulb hummed faintly above us. Michael set the box in the center. His hands were trembling. Before I open this, he said softly, I need to say something. Emily held his hand. Henry leaned forward. I touched his shoulder. Michael's voice cracked. I never wanted any of you involved in this. I never wanted you scared or trapped or hiding in our own home. I was trying to keep everything away from you. I thought I could fix it before it reached you. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. But I couldn't. And that's my fault. Henry shook his head. No, Michael. This is my fault. Emily grabbed both of their hands. This is no one's fault alone, she whispered. We're a family. If one of us falls, we all feel it. Michael looked at her. His eyes softened. I'm sorry, Emily. She nodded, tears falling. I'm scared, she admitted. But I love you. And I'm here. He leaned his forehead against hers for a moment. I felt my chest ache with a quiet kind of tenderness. Even in fear, love was still there. The box. Michael took a deep breath. Okay, he said softly. I'm going to open it now. The basement felt silent. He unlatched the metal clips. They clicked softly. Echoed in the cold room. He lifted the lid. We leaned closer. A folder. A phone. A USB drive. And a small black envelope. Emily frowned. That's it. Michael nodded. These men, they want what's in the envelope most of all. Henry stared at it. Why? What's inside? Michael hesitated. Proof, he said quietly. Proof of what? I whispered. He looked at his father first. Then at Emily. Then finally at me. Proof that their operation, everything they do, can be exposed. Emily's voice shook. You mean, evidence? Yes, Michael whispered. They gave it to me as collateral. As leverage. To make sure I kept paying. They said if I didn't return it exactly when they asked, they would assume I had used it against them. Henry closed his eyes. How did they even trust you with something like this? He whispered. Michael swallowed hard. They didn't trust me. They threatened me. I felt my stomach twist. Michael, I whispered, why didn't you go to the police? He looked at me with tired, pained eyes. Because they told me if I did, they would come for all of you first. Emily sobbed softly. So what do we do now? She asked. Michael stared at the box. I don't know, he whispered. I was supposed to give it back tonight. But I didn't. Henry looked up sharply. So they came to get it themselves. Michael nodded. That's why they were here. My voice trembled. And now? Michael's answer was barely a whisper. They'll be back. The breaking point. Emily clung to Michael's arm. So we leave, she whispered. We run. We get in the car and just go. Michael shook his head. It won't work. They're watching the house. Then what? Her voice cracked, almost hysterical. Michael looked at Henry. Then at me. There's something I haven't told you yet, he said softly. Something about the envelope. Henry stiffened. What is it? Michael's voice shook. It's connected to Dad. Henry's breath stopped. My heart dropped. Emily stared at Henry with wide, wet eyes. What does that mean? She whispered. Michael looked down at his father. Dad, tell them. Henry closed his eyes, pain washing over his face. I didn't want you to know this part, he said quietly. What part? I whispered. His shoulders slumped. Part of the debt I owed wasn't just money, he whispered. They made me sign something. Something that put our property under their control if I didn't finish paying. Emily gasped. Our house, she whispered. Henry nodded. And Michael only found out because they threatened to take it. My chest tightened until it hurt. So Michael wasn't just paying your debt, I whispered. He was trying to save our home. Henry nodded, his voice breaking. Yes. Emily put her head in her hands. Michael whispered. I took the envelope because I thought, if I had proof of what they're doing, I could negotiate. I could buy us time. And instead, I whispered, you put yourself in more danger. Michael looked down. I know. Henry covered his face. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I never wanted this for any of you. We sat together in silence for a long, painful moment. It felt like the whole house was grieving. Not just the danger, but the years we spent trying to protect each other with silence. Until silence almost destroyed us. Plan. Finally, Michael looked up. I think we need to leave the house tonight, he whispered. Before they come back. Emily nodded immediately. Yes. Yes. Henry looked uncertain. Where would we go? Michael took a deep breath. To the only place they won't expect us to go. I leaned forward. Where? Michael looked at me. To the police. Henry opened his mouth, but Michael raised a hand. I know it's dangerous. But the evidence in this envelope, it's powerful. It can protect us if we use it right. And if we don't, we'll never be safe. Emily gripped his hand. So we go together? Michael nodded. All of us. I looked at Henry. He looked scared. Not of the men, but of facing the truth. I'll be with you, I told him softly. Every step. His eyes softened and he nodded slowly. Then let's do it, he whispered. Michael exhaled shakily. We'll wait 1 hour. If the house stays quiet, we leave through the back. Emily leaned against him. I touched Henry's shoulder. The basement felt a little warmer then. Not because the danger was gone, but because we were finally standing together. United. A real family again. And that, more than anything, changed everything. We waited in the basement, holding our breaths like people waiting for a long, quiet train to pass. The hour slipped by slowly. Every small sound, a creak, a distant car, the hum of the streetlight, felt important. We kept checking the stair landing as if one look could tell us whether the house was safe. When the hour ended, Michael stood and brushed his knees. He looked tired in a way that does not leave when you sleep. It goes deeper than sleep. Emily put a hand on his arm and squeezed, steadying herself. Henry took a long, slow breath and nodded. We moved quietly up the stairs together. The house was dark and still. We opened the back door and stepped outside into the cool night air. The sky was clear and the streetlight pooled soft yellow on the pavement. For a moment the world felt normal, as if nothing had happened, and then the fear returned, sharp and immediate. We moved to the car quietly, keeping close to the hedges and the shadows. Michael led us, carrying the small box like a strange, fragile heart. Once inside the car, Emily started the engine with shaking hands. We drove with no radio, no conversation, only the sound of the tires on the road and our breathing. At the police station, the fluorescent lights felt too bright. We sat together in the waiting area, and I realized how small and ordinary the room looked compared to the chaos inside us. When an officer finally called us into a room, we told the story slowly, starting from the bank papers and Michael's withdrawals, telling the truth for the first time out loud. Saying the words made them feel real and heavy, but it also lifted something, like taking a weight off our chests. The officers listened carefully. They asked questions with pens poised, and their faces were both professional and human. They took our statement and examined the folder and the USB. One of them said they would start an investigation right away and warned that it might be dangerous, but they also said they would protect us as best they could. We left the station with a detective's promise and an emergency contact number in our hands. The detective told us to stay at a safe house the police provided until they could be confident we were not being watched. It felt strange to hand over our keys and leave our own home like strangers. But staying meant safety for now, and safety had become the only thing that mattered. The following days were a blur of interviews, evidence checks, and protective measures. Detectives came to the house with gentle urgency, scanning every room, taking photographs, and removing the box and its contents for their safety protocols. They explained that the folder held documents that could expose a criminal operation, and the USB had videos and records that might help build a strong case. They would try to use the evidence carefully to avoid tipping off anyone who might do harm. In that uncertain time, we sat together in a small room the police arranged for us. We had 3 suitcases and 3 toothbrushes, and we shared a single set of pajamas between us for the first night. We spoke little, each of us lost in our own thoughts. Yet there was a quiet comfort in simply being near one another. Michael spoke most that week. He told the detectives everything he knew, names he had been forced to repeat, meetings he had attended, and the moments when he had tried to buy us time. Some of his words were angry and raw, others were soft and full of regret. Through it all, he kept apologizing as if the apology could fill the hole his choices had made. Henry spoke too in short pieces. He answered what the detectives asked, sometimes stumbling, sometimes steady. At night he would sit awake and stare at the ceiling, and I could see that the shame he had carried for years had become something else, a resolve to fix what he could. He would not complain, he would only move forward, one step at a time. Emily needed care that week. She would shake when she tried to sleep, and she watched Michael with a hardened softness I had never seen. Sometimes she would cry quietly and wipe her eyes, then laugh a thin laugh and say something ordinary as if trying to force life back into shape. She loved Michael fiercely, and even in her fear she held on to that love like a lifeline. Friends and family reached out in small ways. A neighbor brought soup and left it by the door. A cousin called with quiet encouragement. People offered money, errands, and comfort. Those small acts felt like threads we could use to stitch a new patch onto our life. A few weeks later, the detective told us that arrest had been made. The men who had followed Michael were part of a larger group, and the evidence we had handed over had helped the police move quickly. It did not fix everything. The repairs would take time and the legal process would be slow and painful. We moved back into our house under new terms. The police advised a careful plan, changing routines, monitoring accounts, and making the home more secure. It felt strange to reclaim what was ours after it had been used as leverage. But each small return, sleeping in our old bed, making coffee in our familiar kitchen, folding sheets on our same pile, felt like a quiet victory. As the legal case progressed, we learned a few things that hurt and a few things that healed. We learned that silence had been the enemy in our family. Our silence had allowed fear to grow in shadows. But we also learned that love had kept us together, even when we were broken. Henry and Michael attended counseling together. They sat in a small office with a therapist who listened without judgment. Sometimes they spoke about money and bills and the fateful decisions Henry had made. Sometimes they spoke about the weight of pride, the fear of failure, and what it means to be a father and a son. Those sessions were not easy. There were angry moments and quiet ones. There were admissions that needed to be made and apologies that needed to be heard. But slowly, I saw both of them begin to carry their burdens together rather than alone. It felt like a beginning. Emily and Michael rebuilt trust in small ways. They went for walks and ate silent dinners and then weeks later talked about their future as if it could be shaped again. They decided to pause some plans and focus on healing. It was not a fast recovery, but it was sincere. For me, forgiveness was a long road. At first, I felt broken in places I did not know existed. I could have been angry at Henry for hiding the debt. I could have been furious at Michael for taking the money. But anger did not heal anything. So I chose to hold the grief and let it change me into something softer. I told Henry that I forgave him after a long night, when we sat on the porch with warm tea and the world felt quiet. He cried and I held him, and the holding itself said more than any words. We promised each other honesty, and we set small rules to prevent such secrets from forming again. It felt like making a new home inside the old one. Michael and I had long talks too about his fear and mine. I told him I was proud of his courage in facing what he did to protect us, and I told him he did not have to carry guilt alone. He would apologize and I would answer with a soft truth. We are still a family and families can be rebuilt. Months passed. The court hearings came and went, papers shuffled, testimonies given. The men were convicted for several crimes, and the court ordered restitution when possible. It was not perfect justice. It rarely is in real life. But there was a sense of closure, a line drawn where our family could begin to heal. One morning, as spring light filtered through our kitchen window, I sat with Henry and Michael at the table. We drank our coffee slowly and Emily joined us from her office by the phone. No one rushed. We spoke honestly about bills, appointments, and small ordinary plans. There was laughter then. Not loud, not reckless, but warm and steady. sounded like something returning to life. I learned a simple lesson through all of this. Honesty matters more than pride, always. Secrets are like small fires. They might be hidden for a while, but they grow and can burn the people we love. Telling the truth can be hard and painful, but it is the only path to repair. Our family is not perfect now. We still have scars. We still carry the memory of locked clicks in the dark and of nights waiting in basements. But the scars remind us of what we survived, and the memory makes us careful and kind. The box that once felt like a heart of danger became evidence for justice. And that turned the thing that nearly broke us into something that helped us heal. I do not pretend everything is fixed. There will be days when the old fear returns, and that is okay. We will face it together. When I close my eyes at night now, I still think of that dark basement. But I also think of the light after it. The police station, the quiet therapy rooms, the small cups of tea, the court dates that meant we were taking steps forward. I think of the way Henry finally told the truth and how it allowed us to fight together. We survived because we chose to be honest and brave. We survived because we learned to carry our burdens together. If anyone hears this story and thinks they alone must protect their family with silence, I want you to know this. Silence is a heavy thing, and it can break what you love most. Speak. Tell someone. Ask for help. We were broken, yes. But we were never alone. Sometimes, when I sit by the kitchen window in the early morning, I still think about that night in the basement. Not because I want to relive it, but because it reminds me how fragile life can be, and how quickly the things we take for granted can break. The light of dawn usually falls across the counter, touching the same spot where I used to knead dough or fold small dish towels. Nothing in the house looks different on the surface, but I know our hearts changed in ways no one else can see. Henry comes down the stairs with slow steps now. He always pauses on the last step, looks around the kitchen, and breathes in deeply. It has become his small ritual, a way of reminding himself that we are home, safe, and together. Sometimes I watch him do it without saying a word because I understand what that pause means. Safety is no longer something we assume. It is something we cherish. Michael and Emily visit us often. Sometimes they stay for dinner, sometimes for tea, sometimes just to sit on the porch and talk about their day. They move a little slower too, not from fear but from a new kind of gentleness. Life has softened them, and it has softened us. One evening, Michael sat across from me at the table and said, "Mom, do you still think about everything that happened?" I smiled quietly and nodded. "Yes," I told him. "I think about it, but it doesn't hurt the same way anymore." He lowered his eyes. "I wish I could erase those months for all of us." I reached across and touched his hand. "You don't have to erase anything, Michael. Just grow from it." He nodded slowly, and I saw something ease in his shoulders. The kind of peace that comes when you realize forgiveness is real and lasting. A new kind of peace. Emily has changed too. She used to be sharp, fast-moving, always planning the next thing. But now she takes deeper breaths. She looks at Michael with an expression that is both loving and aware. Aware that life can shift quickly and that people can make mistakes even when they mean well. One afternoon she helped me fold laundry while Michael and Henry changed the porch light. "Linda," she said softly, "I used to think life had to be perfect. Perfect plans, perfect timing, perfect safety. But now, I just want honesty. Even if the truth is hard." I smiled at her. "That's all any of us really want," I said. "Truth. Even when it shakes us." Emily nodded and wiped her eyes gently. I almost lost Michael because I didn't see how scared he was. And I almost lost myself too. I hugged her. "I'm glad you're both here. Facing tomorrow." Court days faded into memory, and the people who had followed Michael were taken into custody. The detective kept us updated until the case was wrapped, and each update brought a little more light back into our lives. Henry began fixing small things around the house, things he had ignored for years. A loose cabinet door. The squeaky hinge on the pantry. A flickering bulb in the hallway. He fixed things slowly, carefully, almost like he was mending parts of himself. One day I found him in the garage, tightening a screw on an old wooden shelf. He didn't hear me walk in. When I touched his shoulder, he turned and managed a small smile. "Trying to keep my hands busy," he said. I nodded. "Are you doing okay?" I asked softly. He took a long breath. "Some days I still feel the weight of it," he admitted. "But most days, I feel grateful that you're beside me." I wrapped my arms around him and he leaned into me, something he rarely did before all of this. We had grown closer not through shared happiness, but through shared fear and healing. And in some ways that bond felt even stronger. Michael's quiet confession. A few weeks after the final court hearing, Michael came over alone. He asked if he could speak with me privately. We sat in the living room, the late afternoon sun stretching long shadows across the carpet. "Mom," he said quietly, "I want to tell you something I didn't say before. I waited. When I first took the money, I didn't just do it because of Dad's debt." He looked down at his hands. "I did it because I wanted to be someone who could take care of everyone. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to give Emily a better life. I wanted to be a good son." My heart softened. "Oh, Michael," I whispered. "You've always been a good son. You didn't need money to prove that." He nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "I know that now. But back then, I thought I had to fix everything or I wasn't enough." I reached out and held his face between my hands just like I used to when he was a boy. "Michael," I said softly, "you were enough from the moment you were born. You didn't need to earn our love." He leaned into my hands and cried quietly. Not like a child. Not like a broken man. But like someone finally releasing years of pressure. When he left that evening, he seemed lighter. Not free from everything but freer than he had been. A home that breathes again. Our home feels different now. There are new locks on the doors, yes, but that isn't what gives us security. There are cameras outside, but they aren't what help me sleep at night. What makes this house feel safe again is the honesty that fills it. The conversations we share without fear, the way we check on each other without shame, the openness that replaced the silence. Sometimes I bake in the kitchen and Henry reads the newspaper nearby. Sometimes Michael and Emily sit on the porch swing while fireflies dance in the yard. Sometimes we gather around the dining table and talk long after the plates are empty. These moments aren't dramatic. They're not loud. They're just gentle, warm. And I have learned those are the moments that make life meaningful. My final thoughts. A soft moral. When I look back at everything, the quiet fear, the secrets, the menacing footsteps, the broken trust, the basement, the truth Henry carried, and the burden Michael hid, I see more than pain. I see a family learning to speak again. I see love bending but not breaking. I see mistakes that became lessons. I see fear that grew into courage. And above all, I see the truth. We cannot protect each other with silence. Silence isn't a shield. It's a wall. And walls keep us apart when we need each other most. If I could leave one message for anyone listening, it would be this. Talk before the silence grows. Share the truth before it becomes too heavy. Forgive yourself for the mistakes you hide. And hold your loved ones close even when they falter. Life is too fragile to carry our burdens alone. And love, when spoken honestly, is strong enough to bring us back together. Even after the darkest night.